Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining and welcome back to Wall Street Silver. Our guest today is my good friend Jeffrey Tucker. He is the founder and president of the Brownstone Institute. He is also the former editorial director of the American Institute for Economic Research. Welcome back, Jeffrey.
That's good to be here. Thank you.
Always having you on Wall Street Silver is such a huge pleasure. There's so much going on in the world. There's so much turmoil, economic issues, people, precious metals as well as a lot of people are keeping their eye on that. I wanted to bring you on today to talk about all the craziness, but first we'll start off with gold and silver. What is your outlook right now for gold for, let's say, now to the end of 2024?
Uh, as always, I say that in times of economic turmoil and trouble, the gold and silver are both safe havens. You're starting to see central banks around the world confirming this. They're collecting as much gold as they possibly can, expecting more of the same, which is not prosperity, but continuing economic chaos, nationalism, intensifying trade blocks and protectionism all around the world, and a growing consumer revolt that is going to be devastating, I'm afraid, for
Right.
many retail outlets. And we've talked about this in the past about commercial real estate in cities. So,
Yeah.
we've got growing problems that you have to look really deeply into the data to figure this out because the headlines are always just basically lying to you all the time. I'm expecting that this Thursday with the CPI coming out. I assume that it's going to be, we're going to look at some improvement in the numbers, on the surface of it, but not as you dig, more deeply into them. And that will be designed to prepare a way for the Fed to cut rates sometime in the next couple of months. I feel for sure that's going to happen, and this is all designed to game the system so that Biden can inherit a booming economy, as they like to say.
And we're thinking the same thing too. On the surface, always, even just like last time, the jobs numbers looks great, but then like what you said when I had you on before, once you look deeper under the skirt, it just looks it's horrible. It's not great at all.
No.
And I wanted to talk to you also about Bank of America. A lot of people have been talking about Bank of America, all of their bad loans that they have or losses, unrealized losses in the commercial real estate sector. And Kramer just came out like a day or two ago and he said Bank of America is a buy. That's going up.
That It tells you
Yeah.
everything. It tells you everything you need to know. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is the commercial the leverage in these sectors in their cities is so high. I mean, as soon as the lockdowns happened, I thought this is going to be a disaster for our cities. I mean, it was just so
Yeah.
obvious to me that they would not recover from the stay-at-home work, from the supply chain breakages, from all the disasters that were happening, and that the cities which were booming before would are so levered up that they're going to be in grave trouble. It's just the problems that the leases are quite long,
Yeah.
in these office places, 5 years and that sort of thing. But they're all coming due now, and it's going to put enormous pressure on the banking systems. And the Fed is really working to forestall that right now. And they're probably going to try to save the system with inflation and market it as their response to climate change or something like that. I mean, you know, which sounds like a joke, except that the Fed just conducted tabletop exercises on climate change and put out a report last week about
Yeah.
it. And it turns out, oh, you won't be surprised to know this, that the Fed's going to respond to climate change by loosening money and credit. That will not surprise you.
Oh, that's just crazy. When does it end? When does like how long can they kick the can down the road? Like it's just insane.
So my concern is, and this is part of the problem, is that it's very difficult to look back at history and find any models for where we're headed,
Right.
because this is really we have no precedent for what it's like for the Fed to create $6 trillion in new liquidity over the course of 18 months, what the effects
Yes.
are going to be on the industrial structure and on the price structure and on the banking system, and combine that with lockdowns and trade breakdowns and all the rest of it. But one model you can kind of look at is from the
Mhm.
1970s, where you saw the same level of political arrogance and then upheavals taking place after the end of the gold standard. And the inflations came in three successive cycles, right? Waves. We had wave one, they thought they conquered it, so they loosened rates. And then we had wave two, they thought they conquered that, so they loosened rates again. And then we went to the madness of 1978 through 1981 was the culminating result. What I think people need to be considering is that the devastating inflation we've gone through over the last 4 years made even more devastating because we don't know how devastating it was. They tell
Right.
us it's 20%, but that's just ridiculous. It's probably closer to 50 or 80 or 100% or more in many
Wow.
sectors. And we could talk about why I think that. But we don't, but I think it's important to look at what just happened to us as being
Hmm.
maybe the first of three waves. And I say that because you're not seeing any responsibility taken by the Fed. They're not admitting that what they did in 2020 and 2021 was a catastrophe. They
Yeah.
think they did everything right. The experts are not apologizing. They're just as arrogant and controlling and prancing around as always. They've all got high professorships at Harvard, Princeton, and Georgetown. So, and the Fed is still acting as if they're the master of the universe. Like I
Yeah.
say, that now they're pretending that they can control the global climate with their printing presses. So, I mean, this is the world we're living in. It's a time of unmitigated arrogance and ruling class hegemony, and it's only going to lead to disaster. So I'd hate to be pessimistic about it, but I'm just saying that we could be just through with round one. There's worse
Yeah,
to come.
I'm totally I'm totally certain of it too. Like I have a feeling in my gut that like with all the commercial real estate, geopolitical issues, wars, Russia, Ukraine, trillions of dollars in printed money, like there's no way out of this.
I'm afraid that that's true. The trajectory is really bad, and also we don't seem to have within the political system the means to fix it. So there's no question a revolution on the part of the people is taking place, but
Right.
it's taking place in people's hearts, in pectora, as they say in Latin. But it's not being manifested in anything other than dialing back things like the World Health Organization treaty and things like this.
Yeah,
Um, but
absolutely.
but and that's all good signs. But the only way to restore prosperity and the way we knew it 5 years ago is through a dramatic political changes, huge reforms, and a whole generation of ruling class elites, begging our forgiveness and offering to resign.
Which
How likely is that going to be to
mm,
happen? So, in the meantime, what you have taking place, not just in the US, but around the world, is this kind of seething popular anger that's mostly being expressed privately and between friends that doesn't find its expression in any sort of outward manifestation. And but that situation cannot last. And what that revolution looks like in practice, we just don't have any historical precedent for it. So we're waiting
yeah.
to see.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. It's we're all watching here on Wall Street Silver everything really closely with precious metals, but obviously everything else in the world. What do you think about the prospect for who's going to run against Trump? Do you think Biden will actually m- make it to do this next term, or do you think they'll replace him with another candidate? What do you think will happen there, and how will
My
that affect the
my
market?
opinions on this keep changing. I was really intrigued by an article in the New York Times this morning that said, "Hey, a Trump victory wouldn't be so bad after all."
Ah,
He's got a lot of moderates in place on matters of foreign policy. He's leaning more and more towards seasoned professionals to populate the ranks of his cabinet. And, this kind of article is like, oh, so you're making your peace with Trump. So it could be that there's a growing sense that
they know
Biden,
he's going to win.
yeah. And therefore, if you know he's going to win, better to occupy the administration ahead of time. And Trump does have a weakness. He loves to be loved, right?
Yeah,
Especially by the establishment. So I think the goal might be at this point to subvert the Trump administration before it even takes power. So I'm not in any sense optimistic about what a second Trump term would mean. Now, I know he has a lot of very good people around him and there's some very good plans in place, but you know,
There's a lot of supporters too, lots of supporters.
a lot of supporters. And but what happens in practice once he gets in there,
Right.
I I don't know. The last time people thought they would knew what Trump was going to do, but it ended up in next level of crazy, with
Do you think
lockdowns.
because presidents don't have any real power, it's all run by establishment and deep state? Is that why
Yeah,
they
well,
can't get stuff done in 4 years?
yeah, the system works that the president has all the power that the establishment gives him. So as long as he's going along and playing according to the rules of the game, everybody's glad to act as if he's in charge and was a
Right.
wonderful guy. But the instant that he goes against the establishment narrative and starts wanting to do things that are contrary to what the ruling class wants, then he basically gets all of his power taken away. And we saw this in real time taking place in 2020 after Trump authorized the lockdowns. He might as well just, gone to Camp David and spent the rest of the time until November because he was reduced to being the tweeting president with absolutely no power.
Wow.
So that's the way it works. And the New York Times ran a weird article the other day that said, Trump's relationship with the intelligence community is really bad, and he's always attacking them all the time. And
I've
this is
heard that. I've heard that even in the CIA or in FBI, they keep a picture of every president, recent president, on the wall, but they've never put Trump up. But
oh yeah,
they put up every single president.
yeah. Well, that's what the New York Times said. They said this is without president that we'd have a president who was not approved by the intelligence community, which is a strange thing to say. It's like, are
Yeah,
you
eh?
saying that the real rulers of America is actually the CIA? What are you talking?
That's good. That's good. Well, Jeffrey, it's such a huge pleasure having you come down to Wall Street Silver as always. Like, thank you so much. Thank you for coming down here.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Talk to you soon.